Alright, everyone, I have officially gotten through the original Hunger Games movies. I just finished watching Mockingjay Part 2 for the first time ever. I know it's been over a decade since this came out, but this was my first time watching it, so I am going to talk about it and then review it and then talk about the series as a whole. So, with that being said, this is the Hunger Games Yap Sesh, part number 4, where I talk about Mockingjay Part 2. Now, if this is your first time seeing any of my videos, I have been working on a series where I go through, revisit the Hunger Games movies in preparation for this new Haymitch movie that will be coming out later this year. Haymitch has always been a favorite character of mine, and I thought it would be best if I actually go through the whole series. I've seen Hunger Games 1, Hunger Games 2, back in the day when they were coming out, when I was reading the books, when it was super duper popular. Back when I was like 12. But I'd never watched through Mockingjay Part 1 or Mockingjay Part 2. And I have finally gotten through those movies as well. So for each movie, I have been making a video where I review it, talk about things I liked, didn't like. And I'm going to continue to do this series. I am planning on watching the prequel movie. I've seen half of that on a plane ride before, but then the Hunger Games ended, and I was like, okay, the Hunger Games are done. I guess I'll stop watching. So I'm going to rewatch that movie, and then eventually when the Haymitch movie does come out in November, I will be watching that as well. So if that's something that you want to stick around for, something that you want to follow up with, you should check out my channel. I have other stuff as well. I usually talk about movies, both new and old, sometimes shows as well. It's been a blast talking about Hunger Games, but I have a bunch of other stuff as well, whether it be Game of Thrones, Star Wars, Disney, all sorts of things. If any of that sounds interesting to you, please check out my channel and see if there's anything else that you like. Any sort of support, whether it be a like, subscription, any of that helps out immensely, so thank you. So yeah, it's kind of bittersweet now that I have gotten through Mockingjay Part 2. So what is it? This is the conclusion of the Hunger Games series, the Hunger Games movies, at least the original ones, at least what was planned at first. Mockingjay splits up that book. The movies split up the book into Part 1, Part 2. I will say I initially thought that was a poor choice. Why didn't they just combine everything into one? I kind of hate when movies do that. Split up a book unnecessarily just to make more money. After watching through Part 2, I was like, okay, I see why now. Because there was so much packed into Part 2 that there was no way that they could combine the two, I don't think. So I'll take back my statement from last video. I think that's good that Part 2 had its own movie because there was a lot going on. It started off with the very cliffhanger ending of Mockingjay Part 1 where they finally get Peeta back. Peeta is all brainwashed. He's hurting Katniss. They're trying to unbrainwash him, but he's still struggling with that effect that the Capitol had on him when they were torturing him. Apart from that, the rebellion is in full swing. Katniss is going to District 2, which I guess is a big military hub for the Capitol. I didn't know that until this movie. They do stuff there. They avalanche the mountain. People come out. Katniss gets shot. Katniss survives it. Katniss does this, Katniss does that, and then in the end, they all march onto the Capitol, go through it. Katniss and her squad kind of go off and do their own thing. A bunch of crap happens, and then finally at the end, they all make it to President Snow's mansion, and shit goes down once again. But in the end, everything works out. At least for most of our main characters, they get a somewhat happy ending, which I was a fan of. So that's kind of the very brief summary on it. I'm going to start with stuff that I didn't like, and then I'll transition into stuff that I did like, and then I will talk about the series as a whole at the very end. So first thing that I did not like is that Katniss was kind of annoying in some bits again. I mentioned this in the first movie, how there were parts where I thought she was mean, I thought she was annoying, I thought she was not stuck up, but had this presence about her that wasn't super duper likable. There were glimpses of that in this. I didn't see any in the second movie, the third movie, not really, but this one there were glimpses of it, but it wasn't too terrible. It was just noticeable. Next thing that was super glaring to me was at the end, where I'm like, okay, they're concocting this plan. They're kind of in the basement of that tigress lady's house, and then they're concocting a plan to infiltrate President Snow's mansion, go inside with all the other Capitol people. One would think that you would put Capitol makeup on. What did they do? They just threw on some hoodies and put their hood up, and they thought that would be a good enough disguise. It's like, bro, this is the Capitol. They paint their faces. They do all these wacky colors. You're telling me that Tigress lady didn't have makeup? You got to put makeup on, and then they wouldn't have had the problem. I mean, it all went to shit anyways, so it didn't even matter. But they wouldn't have had that problem of worrying about getting in as the peacekeepers were like looking at people's faces, taking off hoods and that sort of thing. It's like, what? If you're going to do a disguise, you have to do a disguise. Just paint their face white, put some like blue eyeliner, whatever, blue lipstick, crazy stuff, and then a crazy outfit on, and they wouldn't have known the difference. I'm like, what? But no, they just threw on a hoodie, threw up the hood, and we're like, okay, that's our disguise. Let's rock and roll. Didn't matter in the end, but I just thought that was funny that they didn't go that extra mile. Not even extra mile, that extra couple steps to make their disguise believable. After that, why was Prim out there? Why was Prim out there? Why is a 14, 15-year-old girl out there doing the medical work on the battlefield? That should not be allowed. That should not be allowed. Why was she out there? Have the adults do that. She needs to be back home, back at base, doing whatever. Like, sure, she can tend to people if they bring them in. Like, if you want to do your medical stuff, fine. That's fine. But why the hell is a 14-year-old girl out in the middle of the battlefield trying to drag out hurt people? That made no sense. And obviously, we see the effects of that blunder. I had the same critique about Gale in the last movie. Why is this 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid suddenly just like the best military guy that they have? Despite there being a whole entire district, Secret District 13, whose main focus is military stuff. Like, why do we have these kids being the... Oh my gosh, I just threw something. Why do we have these kids doing it? But those were my only critiques on this movie, honestly. It was a short list of critiques. Most of it I enjoyed. It was just those three little things that were noticeable and I felt I should call out. And at the end of the day, this is based off a YA novel, and some of the stuff just happens to keep the plot moving along, So that's forgivable. I know why stuff happened. It was just like, I just thought I would call it out a little bit. Next segment, before I get into things that I did like, I want to call out some of my predictions that I made. First one being, I was right about Madam President. I was like, I don't like her, mainly because I thought she was annoying. But like then she ended up being bad as well. And I'm like, I knew there was something up with you. So I felt very justified after seeing her do her switch once they got into power. Maybe I'll roll back the clip. We'll see what I said about her. The next thing I didn't enjoy was Madam President. I thought she was very annoying. I'm like, who is this lady? I don't care about her. She's mean. She's annoying. She is the counter of President Snow, I guess. And just like her district, where did she come from? Where was she this whole time? Honestly, I didn't think she would become a second villain or become the flip side of the coin. I guess that's her name, Coin. So she's the other side of the coin of President Snow. So she's just President Snow, but for the other side. In all honesty, I thought she would have been a girl boss through and through. And I respect it that she wasn't. Like, because she popped out of nowhere. That was my critique in the last video. She popped out of nowhere, and she's like, oh, the savior of everyone. It's like, where were you this whole time then, huh? You and your military district who had all these jets and bombs and weapons and soldiers. Like, where were you this whole time? And then I thought she'd go on, become the president, and everything would be all fine and dandy, and she'd just be good at absolutely everything, just like so many other Mary Sue characters in modern stuff now, the past 5-10 years, anything past like 2020, where it's like, oh, we can't have the female girl boss lady be the bad guy. No. Only white men are the bad guys. But this was 2015. Oh my gosh, I had this pulled up and I haven't been using it at all. But this was 2015, And I guess it was like right before that time of, oh, we feel obligated to have our female leaders do no wrong. That was not the case for Madam President. The other thing I was right about, and I'm going to rant on this a little bit, Haymitch and Effie. I knew that there was something going on between them, and we got confirmation right here, everyone. So, you know what this proves? That my rant on Sunrise on the Reaping, the very last chapter, was justified. Because Suzanne Collins, is who I'm referring to when I say she, the author, switched up Haymitch's character at the very last chapter of the book. If you don't want spoilers, just skip a minute or two ahead. But I'm going to talk about the book just for a second because I read through that. I enjoyed it all the way until the last chapter where they switched up Haymitch's character and they made him a bum just for the sake of being a bum, a depressed guy thinking about his girlfriend from when he was 16 for all these years and years and years afterward. No, he was planning the whole time. He had moved on from Lenore Dove. We see that from just who Haymitch is. He is the capital rascal. He played along this whole time. He pretended to go along with the capital, to be kind of a good victor, to go to all these things every single year as the Hunger Games roll around. He mingles with the ladies at the Capitol. We see that with Joanna, when Joanna's stripping in front of Peeta, which is illegal. Peeta's a minor. That was crazy. But then, like, Joanna winking at Haymitch, whatever. And then I knew that Effie and him would have had something going on because they had history. She was a part of his games as well. She helped out. And I'm like, if these two are coming back year after year after year to each other, something's going to develop, man. And I turned out to be right. Suzanne Collins switched up his character. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to rant about this anymore. If you want to hear that rant, I have that video already up on my channel. Go check it out. I was getting heated about it because Haymitch is my favorite character from this show. And I felt awful that the very last chapter of the book, which was a good book other than that, it kind of ruined Haymitch's character a little bit for me. She forgot like who her own character is and why he acts the way he is, why he drinks, why he does the things that he does. Now that I've pointed out those things, I'll move on to the things that I liked. And there's a pretty long list, so I will rattle through them relatively quickly because there's a lot of good that I liked in this movie. The first being the wedding. I am a huge fan of when these big serious movies take a step back, take a breath, and they allow their characters to relax, allow their characters to be happy for a little bit. It pulls at my heartstrings every single time, especially with like the fiddle going and people dancing around and it's green and there's smiles and people are having a good time. It's so nice when stories do that, when movies do that, especially for characters who have been going through shit after shit after shit, just to have that little, I can breathe. I can be happy for a little bit. I always love that. Apart from that, those humanoid mutts were crazy. Is that the first time we ever had mutts that were human-shaped? Is that the first time ever in the history of Hunger Games lore that happened? Those things were crazy. That scene, just in general, was crazy. I think it was one of my favorite scenes out of the whole thing because everyone was stepping up. Everyone was fighting. Everyone looked epic doing it. It was high stakes. My heart was pumping. These crazy looking zombie-like humanoid mutts were going ham. I just thought that was crazy because a lot of the other mutts in the universe is like styled after different animals. So like birds or bees or squirrels or whatever it may be. But these ones were human mutts, at least human-like. And I thought that was crazy. Once again, the fight was awesome. Apart from, obviously, Finnick, who is another one of my favorite characters in this series. Oh, man. He went out like a champ, though. I was okay with that. But the fight, just in general, was so cool. So awesome looking. And it was just well done, and I had a good time watching it. Another little aspect that I enjoyed that was kind of throughout this movie, it wasn't too much in Mockingjay Part 1, but it was more so prevalent in Part 2, was the aspect of who can I trust? I don't know who to trust. Especially, I forget his name, the one black captain dude when he got his legs blown out from under him. And he's like, don't trust anyone. I'm like, oh shit, that's kind of crazy. And he ended up being right. And then Coin, obviously doing what Coin did. And I just thought that was a cool aspect to it. Another thing I liked was the execution scene. So with Katniss and her bow and arrow, and then it looks like she's going to execute Snow, but she raises it, executes the Madam President instead. I thought that scene was great because it solidifies who Katniss is as a person. She's not vengeful. She just wants to do the right thing. She wants to keep kids safe. She wants to keep people safe, free, be able to choose. She's just has a great moral compass, and she's very firm in doing the right thing. This just solidifies that what Katniss was doing was not a fluke, and that it wasn't just vengeance. Coin was vengeful. Joanna was vengeful, wanting to make the capital kids partake in a Hunger Games as revenge. But Katniss stuck true to what was right, and I thought that just solidified her character even more and made her likable as a character. Along those lines with Madam President and then President Snow. President Snow was sticking with his manipulative ways until the very, very end, man. I respect that. like he didn't back down. He didn't cower at the end. It was just, even when he had lost, he was like trying to mess with Katniss's mind and be like, can you really trust Coin? Will Coin be worse than me? Maybe I was the best person for this job. Maybe what I have upheld will be better than whatever you guys come up with. Just like clinging on to that sort of manipulativeness of him. I just thought that was a nice touch. Another thing, I hate to say it, because for 3 videos now, I have been hating on Gale. Hate Gale, hate Gale, hate Gale. This movie, I hate to say it, I didn't hate Gale. He was pretty likable in this movie, and at the end, I came to enjoy his character. I never thought I'd find myself saying that, just because I've been bashing on him the whole time. But I don't know. There was just something about this movie and the choices he made and what he stood for, kind of the dialogue that he had between not only Katniss, but even with Peeta and a bunch of the other characters. It's just like, okay, I guess you're all right, Gale. So I like to admit when I'm wrong. Not even wrong, okay? The first 3 movies, I still stick by hating on Gale. Team Peeta all the way. But in this movie, I feel like the end of his arc, I liked it. And he turned out, not that he wasn't a nice guy, but I now liked him as a character as well. At least a little bit. Of course, I have to slip in there that Haymitch is awesome. He always will be awesome. I love him as a character. The drunk bum finally gets to see a world without these games that he had to endure and that he fought so hard year after year after year after year, and then drowning that hurt and pain and sorrow of watching his tributes die year after year after year. It finally all paid off, and he was able to live again without that fear of President Snow over top of him, without that fear of growing too close to anyone or else Snow will kill them. Good for Haymitch. Get that man a celebratory drink. And then, yeah, maybe after that drink, he won't have to drink so much to drown out that hurt, to drown out that pain. But, I don't know. Haymitch wouldn't be Haymitch without his booze. So, good job, Haymitch. Way to stick in there. And, I'm glad to see that he got a happy ending. Speaking of happy endings, the story as a whole came to a close in a happy enough ending. It was a good ending, a good, hey, we all got out of this alive. Not everyone, they lost people along the way, but for the most part it was happy. It was satisfying. They'd won. You don't know what the future holds, but that's okay for a series like this, for a movie like this, because that leaves us as the audience up to speculating, hey, what happens after this? What happens with their kids? How does everything play out after the war? I don't even know what they call this war, honestly. War of the Mockingjay, maybe? The rebels? I don't know. But post that war and what the world will look like, what Panem will look like after that. It was a pretty happy ending. And Finnick got a son. Good for Finnick. He consummated that marriage just in time. His legacy will live on. Finnick is great as well. Now, the only last thing about this movie that made me sad is, of course, Primrose Everdeen. In all honesty, the girl who kind of started this all. Because if she wasn't picked, Katniss wouldn't have volunteered, none of this would have happened. And Prim had been a central part of every single movie, a central part of Katniss's character, and that's what I respected Katniss the most about her character, was her love for Prim, was her fearlessness when it came to protecting Prim, standing up for Prim, and standing up for anyone that reminded her of Prim, like Rue and any of the other kids that she encountered, but yeah, mainly Prim. And then, so Prim was there through it all. Katniss's, foundation, her rock, what kept her going, what brought her home every single time she had to get thrown into those games. It was sad to see her go. It tugged at my heartstrings. I hate when stuff like that happens, especially when it's like a younger sibling, but more specifically, younger sister. That sucks. It's very sad that her fate ended the way that it did. But other than that, that's kind of it for Mockingjay Part 2 about what I liked about it. Now, real quick, I will give a little review, and then I'll speak a few words about the series as a whole. My review for this, honestly, I'm going to have to give it, I'll give it a 7.5. A 7.5. You know what? 7.75. Yeah, 7.75 for The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. It was very enjoyable. I liked it a lot better than Mockingjay Part 1. I thought, if you know me, you know that I'm a sucker for endings, for good endings, so that probably bumps it up a point or two. I don't know. I think Catching Fire might still be my favorite, though. We'll see. I'll have to check the rankings, the reviews that I've given all of them. But for this movie, 7.75. It was good. It was enjoyable. And I had a fun time watching it. I was glad to finally see this story come to a close, especially for me, since I've never really seen the close to the Hunger Games story, the Hunger Games history, the Hunger Games lore. Yeah, it came out in 2015, and I started to get invested into this movie, you know. I started getting invested into it, but now after more than a decade, I've finally returned to it, and I'm glad that I got to see the ending of it all. And I'm pretty happy with it. That being said, standout characters that I loved throughout the series. Obviously, number 1, you guessed it, Haymitch. Number 2, I loved Finnick O'Dare, whatever his last name is. I thought he was a great character. He was the youngest one to win his games. That's aura right there, man. And so obviously he peacocks around. He was cocky, but deep down, he was a great guy. He was a stand-up dude who fought and stood up for what he knew to be right. Number 3 is, of course, Primrose Everdeen. There was just something about her. I loved her. She was great. And just how she was the one to kind of inadvertently set off this whole chain of events. Like I said, if her name didn't get pulled, none of this would have happened. Katniss wouldn't have volunteered, and the rebellion would have not existed, at least in the way that we see it. Some key takeaways. I have 2 of them. The first one, we're not so different. We're not so different. I feel like that is the main theme of this entire series. We're not so different. Capital, districts, higher up districts, District 12. We like to put ourselves in these categories and shun ourselves away from the opposite side, or not listen to the opposite side, or lose the fact today that a lot of us, even if they are on the other side, we may not agree with most things, especially politically, but at the end of the day, we are all human, and we're all a lot more alike than we give each other credit for. This is a good reminder of that, and I felt was a huge takeaway for this series. And of course, the last thing, don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Whatever you're fighting against may seem like this colossal thing, this immovable thing. In this case, it's President Snow and the whole Capitol and the whole entire society as a whole, the way it's structured. Katniss knew something was wrong. A lot of other characters, Haymitch, Finnick, Peeta, Gale, they all knew something was wrong. But Katniss especially saw that wrongdoing and tried her best to make it right. Despite her getting hurt time and time and time again, physically, mentally, spiritually. I don't know about spiritually, but it sounded right. But yeah, just getting torn down time and time and time again, almost dying time and time and time again. But despite that, still getting up, still moving on, still trying to do what's right. Now that I say that, it reminds me of Sir Duncan the Tall, which I also have a video on. He was very similar. Got up, kept fighting. Katniss was the same way, and I think we can take that away as well. Fight for what you believe is right. Fight for what is good and for what is right, and do not be afraid to stand up for it. Obviously, that thing you're fighting may look different for you than it will for me, or me from that guy or that gal, but I think at the end of the day, a lot of people, or at least I hope, know what is right, and I hope that they have, and that I have, the strength to do what is right, despite what that may do to me. Is that too philosophical? I don't know. But that was my review on not only Mockingjay Part 2, but as the Hunger Games original series as a whole. Like I said, I will be doing the prequel Hunger Game movies as well. So the President Snow one, Songbird, blah, blah, blah. I forget what it's called. And then obviously once it comes out, the Sunrise on the Reaping, the Haymitch movie. So if you want to stick around for that, if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe so that you don't lose me. But yeah, now that this series has gotten so far, I know it's only 4 videos, but it seems a lot longer that I've been doing this. I had a great time going through the story of Katniss Everdeen and the Hunger Games. It was a good time. I'm glad I got to talk about these, and I'm glad that you guys have shown support in watching these or liking them or even giving a subscription. I really do appreciate all that support, so thank you. And if you got this far into this video, thank you as well. Consider leaving a like. It helps out a lot. But yeah, I'm sure I'll be talking about more Hunger Games, especially later this year as Haymitch comes out. But until then, I think that's all I really had to talk about this movie. Let me know any of your thoughts down in the comments. I love reading through all of that. But apart from that, that's all I had to talk about. Thank you so much for watching. I won't take up any more of your time. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Make sure to eat your veggies. All right, thanks. Bye.